Greetings. Welcome back to a fabulous Monday. I'm loving this weather outside right now, too. But
I don't know why.
it feels amazing. I actually was mad I
Man.
wore a coat.
What?
Yeah, feels amazing. But nevertheless, happy Monday. Welcome back to another episode with the RAD podcast team. I am one half of it, Larry Jefferson, straight from Dallas, Texas.
Dantrayl Smith here, representing the great city, best city in the world for barbecue, Memphis, Tennessee, baby. That's what we do.
You see all these
No man,
nose shaking?
don't hate, man. Don't hate, man.
Everybody's
Don't hate,
shaking.
man.
No, 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 no. I'm gonna give a plug to H&J, but you better go check them out in Oak Cliff.
Okay, well, hey, next time, man, you come pick me up, man. We're gonna go.
But nevertheless, we have
Hey,
some.
for those individuals that missed last week's episode, you missed a treat. Oh man, we had some great conversations. We talked about school shootings and are our kids safe? The guest that we brought on dived into some great conversation and gave some great insight. I mean, I definitely learned quite a bit. But if you didn't get a chance to check it out, you can check it out on our YouTube channel. Also, you can check us out on various audio platforms. Of course, we're on iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Podcast Index. The list goes on and on. I won't go down the entire list, but you can tune in to those different platforms to check us out.
Sir, actually, the conversation went deeper than I even expected. So,
Right?
to get a great insight on what actually happened in some of these school shootings was very, very. I don't even know what to call it. Like just kind of like confusing. Like damn.
Yeah, because you see the narrative that we get on TV, right? And then to actually have some people that are in the trenches and know the backstory to be able to kind of really articulate what exactly went wrong and where the breakdown happened, I was like, oh, so this is what really was going on behind closed doors. No clue.
Right.
So,
And in my argument on these Blue Lives Matters, I'm always done with these guys. And so after it happened, I posted, I was like, I guess blue lives really do matter, especially when it comes to kids.
right.
And surprisingly, an individual replied back and stated, in this case, I guess they were wrong. I was like, you guess?
Right.
Whatever. But nevertheless, we got two amazing individuals on here today that get to share this platform, and we're super excited to have you both on. So, Dr. Love, will ask you to introduce yourself, and Mr. Wilson will follow up with you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am Sharia Taylor Love. I am a higher education professional, been in education. This is my 19th year. Currently a higher education administrator, recovering middle school teacher, and principal.
Recovering. I like that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Wilson Jr. I am from the illustrious Oak Cliff section of Dallas, Texas, born and
Sir.
raised. I'm a Morehouse College grad, a Thurgood Marshall School of Law grad, but I am currently in the trenches right now. I am a eighth grade mathematics instructor right now. I say instructor, but I'm also an eighth grade counselor. I'm an eighth grade father. All of those things. I put on whatever hat is needed. So I have a bunch of titles at my school, but I've been in education for this is my 11th year,
Oh,
my
wow.
11th year teaching. So
Well, glad to
enjoying
have you both on, and excited about the conversation that we're about to have. So, Dantrayl, start us off.
All right. As everybody know, this is the third installment of our educational pipeline conversation that we're delving into. And so today we're talking about the pipeline project. And so our K through 12 and college universities aligning their curriculum that presents students with a smooth transition in which students feel well equipped to particularly as they get ready to enter in the collegiate level. Um, And so my first question for our panelists is, one, what does the educational pipeline look like for you? And can you specifically address some of the barriers that keep the educational realm from really establishing what I would call probably a very prominent pipeline structure?
Um, I can chime in on that. From my view, like I said, I'm in the trenches. I'm in the classroom right now as an eighth grade teacher, and getting my students ready for high school, and a lot of them, most of them saying that they want to go to college. Um, there's a lack of accountability for the students individually themselves that I see within the districts and within the administration. A lot of the blame is put on the teachers and the administration versus actually putting it back on the students. I have students that were coming in, and this is even prior to COVID. Just a lack of understanding of the basics, foundations that they need to go to the next level. Coming in 2 and 3 years behind. Even this is even before COVID. And
Wow.
once COVID hit, man, you would be amazed. I have eighth grade students who struggle to even know their 1-digit multiplication tables, and they're in eighth grade. So how are you even sitting in my class in the first place,
Right.
and you don't even know your basic single digit multiplication table? We're not even talking about double digit multiplication and division. We're talking 9 times 5. You don't know the answer to. You don't have that memorized like you have your name memorized. And that's a problem for me. But I'm supposed to be teaching them pre-algebra. You know what I'm saying? So I'm
Right.
supposed to be getting them ready for high school, possibly college level type courses, and they don't even know the bare minimum of what they need to know. So it's a lack of accountability, to answer your question, that is not put on the students that should be. It's been passed on to the teachers and administration as far as the accountability is concerned.
Mm.
Um, so I would definitely say ditto and chime into everything that David has said. I would also add a couple of other things. One of the things that I have seen, I joke that I'm a recovering middle school teacher and administrator, but having worked across secondary lines, I've always been certified to teach as an elementary teacher, but wasted that whole certification because little people are just not my jam. But what I know happens is we as educators, I think silos have been created for us, but we also uphold them just because of the nature of all of the things. Like David said, he's a parent, he's a teacher, he's a coach, he's a counselor, he's all of the things. Well, he doesn't really, and I'm just going to speak for David. David doesn't have time to be the collaborator with the elementary school that his kids came from,
Mm.
or the collaborator with the high school where his kids are going to go to. And so David has to work with who and what David has now, because we talk about pipelines and we give students lots of ways to enter into education. But for as many ways as we give them to enter, we give them many more to exit and far fewer to persist. And so
Mm.
that collaborative piece is missing just because David doesn't have the time. And so while I might have been a student, seventh grade teacher, I can tell David all the things that Johnny can't do. But David's never had time to have conversations with Johnny's third or fourth grade teacher to see where it really started, or his fifth grade teacher. So that's my first soapbox. My
Mm.
second soapbox I'm going to say is we are asking children to make adult decisions. When children are in
Right.
seventh grade, we start saying, what pathway do you want to pick? You know, when you go to high school, you got to choose an endorsement. If you choose this endorsement, you can go to early college high school. Well, if you don't go to early college high school, you choose this endorsement, you can go dual credit. But if you don't do that, then the state of Texas still says that in order for you to graduate from high school in the state with a diploma that means anything, you have to pick an endorsement. I don't know about y'all, maybe y'all are super geniuses on this call, but in the seventh grade, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was growing up. There
Right.
are days now that I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But we are asking seventh graders who are kids to make decisions by the time they're in eighth grade of what they're going to do for the next 4 years. You just heard David say these kids don't know multiplication tables. They don't know multiplication tables, but we are asking them to make adult decisions. And so there are these wonderful, wonderful things, wonderful opportunities that students have in theory. Like we say, if I had the same opportunities that you have when I was growing up, I would have done X, Y, Z. And that might very well be true. But we also didn't have the same obstacles. We didn't have the same barriers. Like folks sat around and had conversations and said, okay, well, if Johnny can't add, how can we all come together and make sure that Johnny can get to where he needs to be? We don't have that because teachers don't have time to do that anymore because they're doing all the other things, or the E, all of the above.
Right.
So I got a follow-up question to that. What happened between the time that our generation exited schools and went on to college to what it looks like now, especially with all the gaps that we see in our students, whether it's math or whether it's writing? Where did the ball drop? Where did the village fall apart, should I say?
Hey man, make sure you classify which generation, because you older than me, bro.
Oh,
That was a good one. I'm gonna tag you back though.
honestly, Larry, I would say, and this is just in my opinion, and I consider myself a part of your generation, even though I'm a year behind you too. You're a little older than me. Um,
Damn.
but I feel like our generation, Larry, we had a work ethic. And even though when we were in school, if we were troublemakers or had any issues, we still had some type of reverence and respect for our elders, for our teachers, for our administrators. And there was a work ethic that was instilled in us, that I don't think this generation gets. I see in my class a bunch of entitled, uh, arrogant, and somewhat, for lack of a better term, I have to say ignorant students sitting in front of me. And that combination is just a recipe for disaster. When you're not willing to listen, when you don't have respect for your elders, and you're super lazy, you don't want to do any work. I'm giving out 4 and 3 problems for you to bring back for me one time a week. Whereas I
Wow.
remember doing 35 to 40 math problems each night for all 5 nights, and was still, still had my troubles, and I'm not even getting any homework back. So you
Wow.
have laziness on top of ignorance. You have that plus the entitlement. My students feel like just because they show up for class, they are entitled to an A. They came to class, they did the work in class, that they are entitled to a passing grade just for their mere presence. Like I should be honored that they showed up for my class. That's the
Wow.
entitlement, and they are dead serious. So I think that lack of, work ethic has, played a part into it. And then you had the parents and the administration that kind of bought into it. The parents would come in and say, "You giving them too much work." They'll fuss at me
Mm.
instead of fussing at the kid for not doing the work that I assigned for one day. They tell me I'm giving too much work. So you have parents that are backing up this thought process. You got administrators and school systems that are jumping to it because nobody wants to be sued. Nobody wants to deal with a lawsuit now. So when the lawsuits came up in that late 90s, early 2000s, when people started suing the school districts for everything and started winning, that's when you saw the ball being dropped.
Well, I think you speak to you said systems, right? And
Mhm.
along those same times. So maybe Larry, I'm gonna go with you because I'm scared to say what generation I'm in since everybody calling you old. But let's just put it
Right.
out there. um, I think what happened is systems changed, right? I can remember when I was in high school. I went to Paul Lawrence Dunbar Senior High School, Fort Worth, Texas. But when I was in high school, failure was an option if I made it an option. If I didn't do the work, I was going to fail. I can remember my first year teaching, and I found out that the first 5, 6 weeks of the school year, we could not give a student at that time anything below a 60.
What?
What?
Even if they did nothing, they're on the report card. They could not get anything below a 60. And the final 6 weeks of the year, it was whatever they got. So I could have Johnny in
Wow.
my class all year, and for 5, 6 weeks in middle school, Johnny could do nothing and get a 60. And the last 6 weeks of the year, Johnny could get an A and pass my class.
Wow.
Because the systems that were in place dictated that he couldn't get anything. The second or third year I was in education, I think it changed to 50. But still,
That's what it is now.
when I was in school, if I did nothing, I got a 0, right? And failure was there. So we say these things like failure is not an option. Well, it is. It is.
Yeah.
If kids don't do the work, or if as an adult I don't do the work, I am going to fail, right? That is an option that I chose. I chose not to do it. And so the systems that we have in place now speak to exactly what kids know, right? As much as we know that they don't do what we think they're supposed to do in class, one thing that kids and those parents whose houses they go home to is read the code of conduct, right? And they won't show up
Right.
for anything else. But when you fail their child, right, they'll show up for that. And so that drives that sense of entitlement because we have systems and rules in place that will carry them. And we talk about pipelines. Well, we don't have it in college, right? So you show up and you do nothing, you get a 0. Or if you don't show up, you get a 0. But there's never been that accountability piece before. But somehow we want them to wake up one day, in high school and wake up tomorrow in college and they're just supposed to know the rules when the rules haven't been the same. They don't exist in the same space.
So let me ask this question just out of curiosity. So is that 50, 60, whatever number,
Mhm.
was that brought on because of the lawsuits? Like what dictated them to put that in place?
I think you saw such a broad spectrum of students that were, like I talked about, being lazy or not doing the work that it's like you couldn't fail everybody. So we gotta raise this bottom line. We can't just put it at a 0. If they get 3 or 4 zeros, that's gonna ruin them forever. They can't recover from that. So they're trying to give them a minimum that they can recover from if they do start doing the work. So they put that 60 and 50 in place, which is what it is now. That 50 in place to kind of give them a higher low point to build up from. Instead of coming from 0, you come from 50 per se.
Okay.
That's why it was installed.
So I was doing a paper the other day, and it was actually a presentation for my doctoral class. And one of the authors, I can't remember because I don't have the paper in front of me, but it stated that higher education will see a drastic decline as we continue to move forward, and talked about how students are just like we will not see the amount of students that we've been seeing, and for whatever reason. Where do you see the education system in the next 5 to 10 years?
If
Good
it stays
question.
if it stays going like it is right now,
Mm-hmm.
man, I can honestly say I'm just gonna give you an example, and I'll just let you know what's going on, even in my school. We started off the school year with one teacher short on staff. We were missing one teacher. By October, by mid-October, we were 3 other teachers that quit.
Damn.
Like just
And quit and left the profession, not just
Wow.
quit our school and went to another school. I'm talking leaving education altogether. So we are now short-staffed, 4 to I think maybe 5 teachers. Even some days I have to fill in on my off period and cover a class because we are 5 teachers short on my campus.
Wow.
Those are the type of things that we're dealing with. The students recognize it. We're missing one of the officers on campus. Just little things like that. Those, if it continues in that manner, as you see more and more people starting to leave the profession for low pay dealing with the attitudes and the misbehavior. Because I can honestly say it's been some days I've had to sit down and be like, David, okay, so if you show this kid you're really from Oak Cliff, um, you know, what's going to happen at home? How you going to pay the bills? You can't, it's been some days for me, Larry. I had to go in the room and talk to myself. But
Right.
those type of things are what people are dealing with, and because of the low pay, it's people are not seeing the benefit for what they're putting their life on the line for, and especially after
Mm.
COVID. I think I was disheartened with the whole system across the nation after COVID. Uh, the way they sent teachers back into the classroom without knowing in full detail the particulars of this particular disease, this COVID situation. They didn't know really what it was, but they sent us back inside the classroom to risk our lives anyway. And I had so many colleagues that passed away. I know four
Oh,
teachers that
wow.
died, people that I knew, people that I worked with that were now at other schools, and they were, older individuals, but they literally lost their life going back into the classroom too soon.
Dang.
Four, personally. So if that's four for me personally,
Wow.
you gotta, you know, you gotta connect the dots with that.
I think in terms of higher education, we are it, it, we're seeing now what will be exacerbated in 5 to 10 years, and so students are voting with their feet. Uh, they can take a class online. They can never show up in person, um, and still get the credential, get the credit, whatever it is that they are looking for, without us, right? And so um, eh, we started to see an uptick in parents choosing K-12 education online during COVID, and they got used to it, and so that trend continues into higher education. But I also think we are seeing that in terms of what we focus on. Um, I I have We have students right now who are pursuing certificate and associate degree programs that are non-academic, right? That are technical programs that 20 years ago, we used to say, "Oh, that school is the vocational ed school," right? And we laughed at those
Mhm.
kids and
Right.
said, if you want to lay bricks, then you go to that school because you can pick that as an elective. And now the kids who went to that school are picking that school and partnering with us in early college, and they're graduating from high school with an associate's degree um, and a job, making $85,000 more than the middle school and the high school teachers who they just worked with. And we wonder what has happened with education when folks who are in education aren't respected. Why would people choose education, right? Why would someone go into the classroom right now? Yay, educators in a small district close to where we are, a small district first year salary is $61,000. Yay, that sounds great. But then all the things that I have to put up with, right? And that's me
Yeah.
getting a 4 year degree plus paying for all of uh, the state certification exams that folks who didn't teach or who aren't in education say that I need in order to go into the classroom. And students are graduating, sitting in classes next to me, becoming linemen, climbing poles, and working in other areas and making 85 and $90,000. So if us in education can't find the respect in education, we'll find it somewhere else. And so if students don't see the value in that education because other folks don't value us as educators or the education process, why would they choose it? So I can get what I need from sitting behind the computer at home. Uh, we talk about paying student workers $15, and that sounds great. But so does Costco, and so does Target, right? And so does Amazon and UPS for the holidays. They pay even more. So why choose education? I mean, we used to say that education was the way for you to change your socioeconomic status. If you were
Right.
born poor, to get to the middle class, then you have to
Right.
get an education and it has to check all these boxes, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
need to get a good job in a good profession. And what does that mean anymore?
Yeah.
Because YouTube,
So
you got people on YouTube that's making thousands of
And
dollars.
and brother, when
a
I tell you,
week.
my students will tell me I'll be a YouTuber. I can get on IG. I know how to do drop shipping. I'm doing that little business now. I might make just as much as you, Mr. Wilson. And I
My
can't
son
really
is 9 and grew up
right.
in the age of Ryan's world. And I'm telling him to sit down and do this third grade math homework. And he's saying this little boy makes millions of dollars reviewing toys. Millions. And I'm saying do this third grade math.
Right. Right.
And I think you bring up a great point, and I really want to dig deeper into this. So let's specifically talk about like curriculum, right? Well, before I jump to the curriculum, I want to also address the 5 to 10 years. Like, do you all feel like as teachers, Larry, this is for you two, teachers, professors, whatever, do you feel like you are having to dumb yourself down and not to really teach at the level that you have been trained and desire to teach at because of one, the expectation to just get folks to graduate and get numbers, or parents on your back? Like what are y'all's thoughts about that?
Mm. I I definitely have to fill in the gaps. So there's no way for me to teach the at the level that I'm supposed to teach and get the things that I need to get across without doing some backtracking. So I have to go back to some fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade math, go over those things that they missed out on, make sure that they get those things before I teach what I need to teach on my lesson. So I have to spend days doing that. The problem comes in is that I have to do that with every single lesson. And when I'm doing that for every single lesson, you're taking away my time throughout the year. So that puts me in a bind because the state mandates that I make sure that I have this certain amount of students that pass my STAR test, right? My teaching status, sometimes my salary can be connected to that,
Right.
right? But you're not factoring in that I had to spend half my time filling in the gaps. Nobody talks about that. And on top of that, like you mentioned, dealing with the bad behavior, dealing with the discipline, dealing with students who are absent day after day. I can't tell you a day that all of my students have shown up to school where, in one period, where all of them have been present. At least 4 or 5 are going to be missing. They come to school on average 3 out of the 5 days per week. So I'm filling in gaps. I'm dealing with absences and I'm dealing with bad behavior. And like I said, some days honestly this year, these past 2 years, I can honestly say this is the most this is the most amount of students I've seen with psychological problems. I've never had
Mm,
this many students who have
wow.
psychological issues. I have 4 students right now on suicide watch. So I have to manage how I approach them each day. 4.
You walking on eggshells.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, hey, hey, Johnny, you feel like doing some work today? That's how I literally have to start my day.
Wow.
Do you feel like it? How do you feel? Are you okay? Do you feel like doing some work today? Because I don't want you to get mad at me at second period and decide to go to the restroom and grab some scissors and do something to harm yourself because you got mad at me. So that's also in the back of my head as a teacher.
And that speaks to what you said again earlier of all the things that you have to be outside of being a teacher. And so I don't think, Dantrayl, to answer your question, for me, I don't know that I would say I have to dumb my curriculum down in order to be able to reach students. Um, what has happened on our end is that I don't have to, because for many of them, they don't reach me. right? And so what I mean is we have all of these stop measures in place before a student can get to a credit bearing class. So a student is able to leave middle school, is able to leave high school, and then they get to us. And in order to complete, right, they have to be able to complete college level work. Well, David just said he can't get through 8th grade material because he's spending more time remediating. And then once they get to college, they can't get to college algebra because we're spending more time remediating. They can't get to government and history classes because they can't pass the TSI exam. So they're not reading and writing met. They're not able to complete college level classes in order to complete that associate's degree. So in many cases, as a higher education instructor, I didn't have to dumb my material down because there were enough barriers that students never got to my material. And so the ones who were able to get to, in my case, I'm teacher education, right? So I am blessed with the fact that folks come to me and they have an idea of what they want to do, teach, right? Now, of course, in 2021, 2022, I don't have nearly as many students coming to me with that wonderful idea now. But for the most part, students have gotten to me and I'm a specialized area, so they know what they want to do and they know that they need to be successful. They know they need to persist. But if I have Johnny who was coming to college because mama said, get a job, go to school, or get out of my house, and Johnny has spoken to enough friends and he has realized that I can go to school, I can get a job on campus now making the same amount of money, right? That or more that I was gonna make if mama made me get a job at the fast food restaurant down the street. And in some cases I can get a check, right? Because if I go to the community college and I get a Pell Grant, I got enough money that I'm gonna get a check. So I'm gonna get paid to go to school. So I'm gonna go to school, right? But I'm gonna get stuck in this cycle of developmental education.
Yep.
And I'm never going to get out. So I've done what mama said to do. I went to school, I got a job, but now I'm gonna be stuck. So now I'm going to school for a year, and you're saying either you're going to be TSI Met, right? Which means you are college ready in reading, writing, and math, or you're not. So I don't have to, on the higher ed side, I don't have to dumb my curriculum down. Because it's enough of them that are going to make it to get to access my curriculum anyway.
But Dantrayl, to piggyback off of Dr. Love, the ones that do get out of the development realm and get to my courses, you get a bunch of papers that turned in with no cover page. They just start the paper at the top and you see I this, I that, I this, he that. And you go like, hey, what kind of writing is this? And where did this come from?
Right.
What did
And
you
next
learn?
thing you know, I had a student last semester tried to go off on me, told me that I don't need to be teaching psychology, I need to teach English. So I'm having to ask myself, dang, what kind do I need to change the papers that I'm requiring? It's crazy.
So I have a follow-up question, man, for our panelists. But before I ask that, I definitely want to open the floor up to our guest. And so if anybody, I saw some people in the chat talking, but if anybody wants to unmute yourself and come on and ask our panelists a question or type it in the chat, Larry and I can read it for you, give you that moment right now.
Once.
Hey, this is Cliff. I'm Larry's cousin.
What's up, Cliff?
A lot of things that going on, baby. A lot of things I see. I'm not in education, but I do coach young athletes, right? So I've been doing that for a while, which I consider it's still education because I'm educating the athletes. But a lot of things I see that happens is it starts at home with the parents. For as I know, me and David went to school for a long time together. A lot of it is the kids feel entitled, and it goes back to, like, you could say, for instance, example for sports, right? If I lose, I still get a participation trophy. I still get something, right? So no matter what I do, I'm always going to be congratulated. I'm always going to be doing this. So when I go to school, I don't have to do my work because the teacher's going to have to pass me, right? Or back in my day, we turn late. For instance, I got 4 kids. When they turn late work in, it's like you still can get your full grade. You can have time to do your full work. And I know for us, when I grew up, it was if you didn't turn your work in at that day, your highest grade you can get was 70%. And
Right.
now kids feel like, well, I ain't gotta do, like you said, I ain't gotta do my homework. I ain't gotta do this. And my wife is in education. I think she does the same thing David does. She's a coach out here in California, and she said the exact same thing. And I think the thing that she deals with, because in California, is a lot of English language learners. People that come from different countries and don't speak the language. So now they don't know the language, but they end up getting these grades where you kind of have to babysit them and handhold them to get these grades. And it kind of goes back to that No Child Left Behind thing. And I think that kind of went away, but it's still that the fact that you still got to handhold these kids and you still got to cradle them to say, hey, I'm a pacify you along to, help you along. And then the kids see that, the kids are smart enough to think that, hey, if I do this, I'm gonna get this regardless. So
Right.
why do what they're saying when I'm gonna get it anyway? That's my take on it.
Right. And Cliff brought up a great point. He used the word entitlement. What's up, Cliff? By the way, it's my my cornerback that was in with me in high school as well. Clifford Jefferson, one of the best corners I've ever seen. Part of that no-fly zone at David W. Carter High School. But anyway, but he used the word entitlement, and that's what I was talking about with the students. They feel entitled to everything just because of their mere presence. Some of my student athletes, they feel like even if they get in trouble, no matter how they perform, they could finish in last place in the tournament. They're still gonna get some type of trophy. They're gonna get something that says, they don't have a sense of failure. So when they fail,
Right.
they still feel like they won.
Yeah.
How do you still feel like you won? Y'all got last place, but you still feeling like you won. You still celebrating because you scored a basket. Well, they scored 22 other baskets. You only scored 1. They don't have any sense of working towards getting better because they get a reward just for showing up, just for their mere presence. So of course I'm entitled. Of course I feel like I'm supposed. I'm here. I get something because that's what has always happened. And we keep doing that until they turn 18. When they get out into the real world and they finally get told no, or they finally hit that first feeling of failure, they don't know how to respond to it. That's why suicide rates are at an all-time high. That's why they want to come back to the school and shoot up the place, because this is the first time they've been told no when they're 17, 18 years old. This is the first time they've not gotten their way, and they don't know how to handle it.
So we got 3 questions. Taisha.
Ooh, okay.
Taisha, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Haisha, and I actually had a question for David. It sounds like he's Joe Clark at Eastside High, but but my question is, would you say that there is inadequate support from the parents as far as because there is no way you should have to me as a teacher, and I get that there a lot comes under that umbrella, but there's no way that you should have to deal with having 4 students on suicide watch. So are the parents, is there an absence of parental support, or is there perhaps some sort of program that could maybe bring cohesion between the classroom and their home life? Is there anything in place that would bring some structure to the classroom and at home? I mean, I understand that you guys only have control over what they do while they're at school, but it seems like there may be a lack of parental support there.
I agree. The largest group of parental support, the most parental support we get just least from at my school, I see is during athletics. It's for sporting events. So when it comes to football and basketball, that's when I see most of my parents. So there is a PTA organization at my school, but you don't see a lot of parental participation. You see more of the teachers showing up at the PTA meetings. It's mostly teachers. It's not a lot of parents. But when it's time for the basketball game, that's when the parents are in the stands. If I'm calling, if I'm emailing my parents about behavior, about what's going on in my classroom, grade wise, I don't get a lot of responses. The responses that I get are from the ones I don't need. It's from my students who are A students and high B students. Those are the parents that respond. The parents that I really need to talk to are the ones that I don't hear from. Unless there's a major, you will hear from those parents if the student gets into a fight, or if a
Oh, yeah.
teacher says something that the student doesn't like. If he goes home and tells his parent, the teacher says something bad, you'll get a parent response then, and then you have to address it at that point. But like you said, Taisha, no, it's not parental involvement like you need for the students who need it most. So there's a PTA in place, but not a lot of parents participate in that. I get most of my parents that show up are showing up for sporting events.
Dr. Love, we're going to let you answer this question. Margina asked, are there any ideas of how to fix this? Being that you've played a role in both worlds, what would be your response to that?
So this is going to sound totally very cliche, right? And it's communication. I started earlier saying um, we've built these silos in education across all parts, and that's what it's going to take us tearing those down to have conversations. How many times do we in education literally have conversations with folks about how to fix the problem instead of blaming it? And when I was a middle school teacher, I would say the same thing. How did these kids get out of fifth grade? They got to pass the STAR in math and reading in fifth grade. How did they even get to middle school, right? And then in high school, it was the same thing. Like, oh my goodness, what are those middle school teachers doing? Like, what happened? So I think genuine conversation around the problem, right? The core of the, and not the people, but the problem, right? Students aren't being successful. Students are falling through the cracks because there are enough of them that they can fall through, right? How do we fix those? But then again, to Taisha's point, right, it's having conversations with parents again. I talk to teachers every other day who will not have conversations with parents, right? Because we talk about self-care and we talk about being cognizant of our students' mental health needs. But we got to be cognizant of our teachers' mental health needs too, right? And
Right.
I am asking these teachers to be on the front lines with all the things related to these kids, and then not to hide when it comes to parents, right? Well, kids aren't the only people carrying guns, right? Kids aren't the only people who are threatening to do things in school. Their parents are too. And so having those genuine conversations. But I'm also sorry, y'all. I got to take one hat off and put the other one on. We also have to hold people who are outside of education making decisions about education accountable,
Right.
right? Think about the people who we are voting for, right? And these conversations are way beyond red and blue, right? When you have a person who is over the Texas Education Agency, who is the commissioner of education in the state of Texas, who is appointed by the governor, right? You have to start to think about who you're voting for governor, because that person is making the decision on who's going to be the commissioner of education, making the decisions about what's going to happen from pre-K and early childhood through 12th grade. Those are the kinds of conversations we have to have, right? So to say, I don't like this candidate or I don't like that candidate because he or she is of this party or of that party, you got to go beyond that, right? You have to really start to think about what you're doing at the ballot box, who you're voting for, and then who that person is voting for. We have a commissioner of education in the state of Texas who has openly said he couldn't survive as a substitute teacher. So you mean to tell me that the man who
Wow.
is making decisions for pre-K through 12th grade could not survive as a substitute teacher? But guess what? The governor who appointed him just got reelected. So do you think the commissioner of education is going anywhere? No.
Nope.
So we're going to have these same conversations for the next 4 years because this man has
Jeez.
won. This man is the same one who is saying not only do we want to keep STAR, we also want to create EdTPA, more exams for teachers, primarily those who are Black and brown, who are trying to get into classrooms to become the fixer of these problems. We're going to create more barriers because now we're going to create more tests to say whether or not you should or shouldn't be in a classroom. And you're going to have to pay a whole lot of money to show people what you can or can't do in a classroom before you get into a classroom. It's not the people who are voting for them. It's not the people
Right.
who are able to go to fundraiser dinners and pay $1,000 for a plate who are concerned about having to pay $400 for a certification test. It's people who are like most of us on this call, most of us on this podcast today. So to fix it, we got to look way beyond what's happening in our little classroom, what's happening in this grade, what's happening in our community, because the thing about it is that all of us, as passionate as we are about education, can't change anything until the people who are sitting in seats that are decision makers are different. Sorry, you didn't ask me nothing about
It's
that,
all good.
Margina. I'm sorry.
We got two more questions. And this one kind of
Man, I love
plays.
that.
It asks, what is the student to do, when they have a teacher that don't care about them or is not motivated to even teach? What do you expect from the students then? Because there are some sorry freaking teachers too. So
That is very true. I always tell my students, and I try to keep them motivated. I try to find things to keep them encouraged, find out what their interests are. For example, first couple of days of school, that's what I'm talking about. I'm trying to get to know my students, learn something about them. So, because math isn't particularly fun, it's not the subject that most people say was my favorite subject in school. So, I always try to learn about my students first before I start trying to relate math to them. But to those students who say they have teachers that are not particularly motivating them, I encourage them to try to find that self motivation within themselves. Try to find a way to find something to make you want to get through that particular class. That's the best advice I have for a teacher that is not particularly motivating, because there are some bad ones. There are some who definitely come in looking like they don't want to be there every day, and some days you have that feeling, but you got to find something within yourself to help you get through those times, because some of those teachers have been so scorned and so dealing with their own personal things that they that kind of carries over. So you kind of got to look past that, find something within yourself or find something within that class that you can relate to that makes you want to go through it and get through it.
the last question, Ms. Jefferson.
Hello. How are you all? I want to say, first of all, certainly appreciate Dr. Love and Dr. Smith and Mr. Wilson, Mr. Jefferson, for this information you're sharing with us today. And it's certainly interesting to me because I've been out of school a long time, out of college over 40 years. But what some things you've been saying have been so interesting, and I know my daughter Taisha asked, how could you fix it and so forth. Now, I know we way past my generation, 68. When we were in school, there was no, you either got it or you didn't. You either passed the test or you didn't. But the thing is, we had a village. We had parents that would back up the school. If our children got in trouble, or if we got in trouble with the teacher, principal, whatever, our parents would discipline us. And I mean, my daddy would beat the hell out of us. I could not even make a score lower than 70, or he would beat my butt. That's just the way. But we have the younger parents, And like you say, maybe they're interested in sports or whatever, more so than their kids being educated properly. So I don't know how to fix it. I certainly wouldn't know. I'm far from it. But if I wish there were just a way that we could go back to where the parents cared. It starts at home too.
It
And,
does.
and they don't need to just always blame the teachers. You know what? They need to look at themselves and point the fingers back at them and, okay, what can I do? I shouldn't be just concerned about sports or fast money, whatever. I need to be concerned about my kids being educated and stop
But,
blaming everybody else.
but
So that's what I had to say.
to your point, Ms. Jefferson, we've gotten away from that within our communities.
Yes.
It used to be
I
a
agree.
village. It used to be a village that raised a child, right? I can remember getting in trouble, and I get in trouble by my teacher. The principal, he'd get a hold of me too. Then the deacon that works with my grandfather, he'd find out about it. And by the time I got home, I done got popped upside the head by 4 different people. You can't do that anymore. We don't have a village that is okay with our communities raising the children. We got so many more dangerous things going on right now. It's so many people that are out to harm. You have to factor in the things that are going on with child abductions, students, children coming up missing. Uh, Things like that have always happened, but not as much as it is right now. So you don't have that village mentality within our communities, and I think we really need to get back to that. Just black families being together, raising the children together, me being able to discipline your child, because I know Larry has some of the same morals, characteristics, and values that I have. I'm not gonna be mad at Larry for disciplining my kid if my kid does something wrong, right? Because Larry's telling them the right thing. I'm trusting that Larry has the right thing. We don't have that trust. We don't have that family unit. We don't have that village raising our children anymore, and we've got to find a way to get back to that. That's what I see being missing from our system right now.
So I got a real quick question. 'Cause I know we're coming up on our time. Yeah.
You
But
got 7 minutes.
but in 1 minute, 2 minutes or less, I want to piggyback off what Mama Jefferson asked or made a comment about is, do you think integration has really benefited our people?
Do I think it?
No, not you.
No. Because I was getting ready to get started. Let me go on mute.
No. We talking to the people on here.
Doc, I'm gonna defer to you on that one.
Dr. Love.
Really, Dantrayl?
Hey, I know I'm sorry, but I had to ask. I've been wanting to ask it all day.
All right. So I'm gonna yes and no this question. I'm gonna say we started in the right direction, right? The idea of separate being inherently equal when it came to education, right, was great. But I think we became complacent, right? It's one of those things where it was we won, right? We won the battle, but we're losing the war. And so we were done with being integrated, but we started to lose the accountability that came with the integration piece. And we thought, and I'm saying we, right, collectively, in my thoughts or opinions as a group, is we thought we've arrived, right? We have the same thing. We have access to the same textbooks, to the same curriculum materials, right? To the same schools. And we thought with that would come access to the same opportunities, but it didn't. And so because we didn't have access to those same opportunities because of all the other things when it comes to social capital and everything else, there are many parts of integration that has not been beneficial for Black and brown children because we said okay too soon. We said thank you way too soon. The gift was not complete. Like there was more that was supposed to come, and then we were supposed to say thank you. We started saying thank you way too soon.
Yeah.
All right. I get that. We started being, like she said, thankful for the crumbs instead of getting a piece of the pie. We were saying thank you for just getting a crumb. I agree with Dr. Love wholeheartedly. You kind of get into the whole racial aspect of white is right. So once we integrated, you started to measure yourself based off of, you know, some of their standards instead of the standards that we had set for ourselves.
Right.
You saw a sense of pride coming in that late 20s, 30s, 40s era when, you know, black people started to, that whole Renaissance era, or that kind of, that movement created a sense of pride, and once you had that segregation happen, it kind of displaced that prideful standard and replaced it with theirs a bit. I think that's what occurred. So that white is right mentality kind of came into place, and you know, some of it good, some of it bad, like Doc said, but started to be thankful for just to get a piece of anything, just because you were the first black in your particular area to make some type of advancement. I know my father was one of the first black computer scientists in Dallas when he was working on computers. He was one of the first black men in corporate America. But, you know, I think in his mind, he got a little cocky. He thought he hit a ride, right? But, you know, some of that, he went through some struggles. He went through some layoffs. You know, they soon let him know that, you know, you're not who you think you are. And plus, with getting access to that education and people moving up and going to college, they had connections. When some of the white children graduated from school, they had parents and grandparents who were already in position and ready to hire them. When our parents first started getting their college degrees, they had to just hope somebody would give them a chance. And we're still kind of dealing with that right now. Just hoping that once you get your degree, that somebody gives you a shot or give you an opportunity. Sometimes it's about who you know. And
You know, now I appreciate that, man, and because I was simply having a conversation with a buddy of mine, and I was like, me and my younger brother, we were talking about like whose education are we really learning? You know what I mean? Like we're having to sending our children to these schools only to have to reteach them an additional education. So we're saying learn this, but that's not really what happened. Let me when you come home, got to tell you the true story about what. And so it's like it's a lot, man. But nevertheless, man, like Larry said, let me go ahead and jump into this quote.
You got 1 minute.
A real education enhances the dignity of a human being and increases his or her self-respect. If only the real sense of education, the real sense, could be realized by each and every individual and carried forward in every field of human activity, the world would be so much a better place to live in. A.P.J. Abdul Kaleem.
Love it. Well, we appreciate you both being on here, Dr. Love, Mr. Wilson. Shoot, let you know we're having a good conversation. We only got through 2 of our questions. But I love it. I love the questions from the audience. We greatly appreciate you. And again, thank you again for your unrelenting support for us.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for the opportunity.
Make sure y'all tune in next week. It's our 3rd installment of our final mini series. We're going to be talking about body autonomy. So we're going to talk about things that we put on the inside and also the things that we put on the outside through that series. And so our first episode of that series next week is going to be talking about vaccinations. And we're going to dive into and get some thoughts about vaccinations and do they really work? I don't know. So make sure you stay tuned next week.
Well, until next week, we'll see y'all later. Be safe. Make sure for those who are cold, bundle up. Be safe on these roads. Have a good one.